What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here. And today, we're bringing forth the 59th installment of the Dynasty Decision Series we do over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. As you guys will know, this is one of our most ongoing series that we've been having, realistically now for the last year and a half, Corey?
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. You guys really seem to enjoy it. We break down, is your team contending? Is your team rebuilding? What should you do with your rookie picks? What should you do as far as, trade questions that you have? We love breaking down all the dynasty decisions that you guys have in your fantasy leagues. If you guys are curious, if you're in the queue for dynasty decisions, wondering when we're going to get to your team, most of the teams featured in this video were patron submissions. So there's 5 patrons, 3 non-patrons, and the ones that were non-patron submissions were about late June, June 22nd, 25th, and 29th, I believe.
Yep, no, for sure. But either way, if you guys enjoy the series, as always, make sure you leave a like down below and comment down below. Dynasty Decisions is here to say. But with that being said, before we go into the first team, as always, we're going to hit the intro. All right, so the first team of the video, we're going to go off to the first patron. That's going to be from Hughes. I'll let you take it away with his team and scoring description.
Yeah, so it's a 12-team super flex tiered PPR. So half for running backs, 1 for wide receivers, 1.5 for tight ends. His team on the screen there, Cousins, Bridgewater, not a whole lot going on at quarterback. Kenneth Walker mainly at running back, wide receivers, St. Brown, Burks, Ayuk, etc. there. And then not a whole lot going on at tight end with just Brevin Jordan as his main guy there. Not a ton of draft capital either. He's got his 2023 first, his 2024 first, a couple extra seconds here and there in 2024, but he does not have his own 2023 second. So definitely not in the most ideal position to be in Dynasty right now. He has a couple trades listed for us here. He wants to know how did he do on these recent trades. So we'll break these down. In the first trade, he got Dameon Pierce, a 2024 second, and a 2024 third in exchange for Darren Waller in a tight end premium, I might remind you.
Yeah, me personally, I don't think this is enough. Like, I would personally have gone for, again, I don't know how available it is, but if you could have gotten like a 2024 1 and 2, I think is about appropriate value for Darren Waller in the market, especially with the scoring format. Again, I'm assuming you tried for the 2023 1. People probably weren't going to be willing to do it. I just don't think Pierce a second and third is enough for me to lose Waller. Even in a rebuild, I would have looked for more value or potentially a better piece than Pierce. If you could have gotten this to, what would you say, like Jahan Dotson in 2 seconds, I think would be like the bare minimum.
Yeah, I think in the position that you're in, I feel like you may have forced this trade thinking that
Yeah.
if you acquire one more decent running back, you might be able to compete. I think this is time you got to rip this thing down. Like your wide receiver position is your strength, and even at that position, you're not really in the greatest spot. You have Burks and St. Brown and Ayuk, but after that, it's a bunch of question marks. You got one decent running back with Kenneth Walker. You only have one startable quarterback with Kirk Cousins. You got to rip this thing down to the studs. So I definitely, if you were going to sell Waller, you probably should have looked for a 2024 first. We can talk about the next trade here. You received your own first back, which was definitely smart.
Love it.
I think you recognize that you probably need to rebuild this thing, and you trade away A-Rob, Cooks, Kamara in exchange for your own first, a third, Brandon Ayuk, and Rachaad White. This trade I like a lot better.
I love this trade for you. I mean, realistically, I would prefer the 2023 first to Alvin Kamara. I think that's pretty,
especially knowing that you're probably going to tear it down. It's going to become a high first, most likely.
And then when we look at it, a third Ayuk and Rachaad White, I think, given your status, given wanting to get younger, get a younger exposure of talent on your roster, giving up the production of A-Rob and Cooks, getting the young upside of Ayuk, White in that third. I really, really like the structure. I really, really like the process that you had in making this trade. So I really like the second trade. Not a fan of the first trade, but as we kind of said, now that you have that 2023 first, it's full tank mode, baby. You strip this thing down to the core.
Yeah, and he asked, top contenders offering me a late first for Kirk Cousins. I would say, yeah, that's definitely a late 2023 first for Kirk Cousins is probably a move I would make. I would ask about his 2024 first, though, because, I mean, number one, you probably would assume if you give this guy Kirk Cousins, that pick is probably 110, 111, or 112. But if you get his 2024 first, there's a lot that could change between then, right? So you're not going to be competing anytime soon. So if you can get a random 2024 first instead of a late 2023 first for Kirk Cousins, and hell, maybe he'll even throw in more on top of that. I think I would rather do that than just get a late first straight up for him.
Yeah, and another potential transition that you may be able to do with this is the 2023 first for Kirk. Maybe if you incentivize him with, Dameon Pierce and the later projected of the 2024 second, maybe you can get a 2024 first out of that. So realistically, then you're looking at a deal of a 2023 first, a 2024 first for Dameon Pierce, Kirk Cousins, and a later projected two. And at that point, you're just gaining free equity, getting running back production with Pierce off your roster. And if this guy's a contender, I feel like he's not really going to be too baffled by that increase in price, if you will, especially considering he gets access to potential running back points with Pierce.
Yeah, and throw it if you have to throw in MVS and Drew Lock just to give him some more
Yeah.
stuff to add to his contending window, give him some more depth or whatever, that'd be fine with me as well. So yeah, I would be looking to get rid of pretty much anybody on my roster. Anybody that's going to fetch you, future draft capital. I'm looking to probably load up the 2024 draft class because the 2023 class is probably, most people in your league understand that it's probably going to be a good class. The 2023 pick that you have is going to be very, very high. I'd be looking to sell it if you get the 101. Bijan Robinson, I'd probably look for, multiple 2024 first, start trading into 2025. You got to tear this thing down. This thing ain't good enough to compete with. This is an orphan, I believe, I think is what he said in the email. So I would say you got a lot of work to do with this one. He also said, should I be looking to trade my young running backs now? If so, what should I be looking to get out of them? With
Yes.
Damian Pierce and Rashad White, I would probably wait to see what their workload looks like. And it really all depends on cost, right? Because if somebody's going to give you a second straight up for Damian Pierce, I'll take that. But maybe in season, Damian Pierce is, gets off to a start with the Houston Texans, and he has a couple good games in a row. And maybe you can squeeze like Damian Pierce in a 2 for a late 1.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say Pierce, I feel like I'm more willing to move in the offseason because people are gonna look at the running back room for the Texans. People are gonna project them into volume. And if there's someone in your league who's a believer that he's gonna assume that role right off the bat, you may be able to get the value now. Rashad White, I'm more willing to hold on to given the fact that he's full contingency on the status of Leonard Fournette. So you could potentially get, 1.3x the return if Fournette has a sustained period where, say, he pulls his hammy because he's been eating too many cheeseburgers, and he misses like 3 weeks, and at that point, like you're gonna get better comparable value for Rashad White. So I'm more willing to move Pierce, but ultimately here again, as much as I like Kenneth Walker, you mentioned it. If you can get a decent little plus on top of a 2024 first to move off of Kenneth Walker, take that running back production off your team, and get equity long term for a team that realistically isn't going to compete in the next 2 years. Those are the type of moves I'm making all day, every day.
Yeah, I also think Kenneth Walker has a chance to become like this year's Javonte Williams, this year's like Cam Akers, where this time next year, like in the Dynasty offseason, January, February, March, he's, the Dynasty RB5 or something because he had a great, final stretch with the Seahawks. At that point in time, maybe it would have been worthwhile for you to hold on to Kenneth Walker and sell him at this point next offseason. So it's all going to depend on, if Walker gets thrust into some huge workload at any point this season, he's probably going to be worth quite a bit. So I'd probably not sell him right away. I would probably wait to see what kind of workload split we're looking at. But yeah, general strategy for this team. Again, I'm tearing this thing down to the studs and rebuilding in the long term. So let's move on to the next team here, which is from Logan, an 8-team league. So a smaller league format, PPR, Superflex, tight end premium. You guys can see the team on the screen there. Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, Derek Carr as the main quarterbacks. Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley, CEH, Kareem Hunt, etc. at running back. He has Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, Traylon Burks, Rashad Bateman, etc. at wide receiver. And then obviously in a tight end premium 8-team league, Kyle Pitts is worth fucking his weight in gold. I'd be really hard pressed to trade somebody like that in that type of league format. He also has listed here a very visually appealing team MVP with his key there. Justin Jefferson, he has his own first round pick. He has another guy's first round pick as well. And then it looks like all of his picks in the future drafts as well. He also has listed here who's like a hard sell and a soft sell on his team. So really visually appealing thing here from Logan.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm like, considering you're very good, with the digital aspect, with the media aspect, did you actually like draw that? Did you actually like make that? Because if so, that's like a dope aspect. But either way, I mean, you mentioned like very, very visually appealing. He also has listed here guys that he views as soft sells, the guys he views here as hard sells. So right off the bat, I'll tell you right now, you should bold and Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's name in hard or hard red.
Oh
Or
yeah,
whatever.
100% hard sell all the time.
Yeah.
It all depends on league format though,
Yeah.
because some people are just like so out on Clyde Edwards-Helaire that like you can't get shit for him anyway. So you might as well at least hold him until he's like thrust into some kind of workload. Then maybe you can sell him at that point. But yeah, Mixon and CEH are the two guys that I'm probably looking to shop. The rest of your dudes, you're kind of well set up for a 1-year punt, I would say. because
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts isn't going to have great quarterback play this year. Deshaun Watson's probably going to get suspended for a couple games. Justin Fields, second-year quarterback. I think you're probably pretty well set up to see what happens this year. Maybe
Agreed.
you're in a position where you're in a good spot, but in that case, I'm probably going to look to sell Joe Mixon for sure. Probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. You also have 2 1s in next year's draft class, including your own. So it does benefit you to maybe tank that pick a little bit and help build this thing out in the future. So I'm probably looking to sell a couple guys on this team. He also has a couple trades listed here, and it looks like he kind of already started this process. He sold away Tyreek Hill and James Robinson, and in exchange for that, got a 2023 first from Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal move, especially contextually that this is an 8-team league. Like, let's just assume for ease sake that that's a mid first, because I mean, maybe it's a late first because this guy's trading for Tyreek Hill, but let's just say he's 6th pick because he's a later contender. Maybe doesn't win it all. Maybe loses in the semifinal. We see that story a year in and year out. 6th pick next year, so we're looking at one of those running backs. Not Caleb Williams, one of those quarterbacks, Stroud or Young, or potentially, a Butte, Jackson Smith, Jigba, or Jordan Addison type. You're getting that on top of Rashad Bateman. You're moving a 29-year-old receiver and a 24-year-old running back coming off a torn Achilles. Love this move. You take all the risk off of your team and you net liquidity, you net equity long-term. Great move. The next trade here, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you just went to Chase, say, hey, Chase, do you think you have a better team than Harper? Because I'll give you Harper.
I think that's exactly what happened.
I think that's what happened. He basically just said, hey, Chase, like if you think your team's better than Harper's, we could make that exchange right now. And then, Chase with his ego probably has a worse team is like, you know what? I'll accept your deal. So that's probably what happened here because ultimately this just looks like a 1-for-1. And then, so either way, I mean, I'm assuming because you did this move, you're probably thinking you're getting a more advantageous pick. Otherwise, it's a moot move. But the final deal also, you stole Deshaun Watson.
Woodshed. Yeah. I like Devontae Smith. You give me a fucking 26-year-old quarterback in his prime in a super flex league, I'm taking Deshaun Watson. In an 8-team league, I guess he's a little bit more undervalued because there's more quarterbacks available. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, just the freest cash in Dynasty that I've ever seen. Like, we got a report the other day that he might only get suspended 8 games. For those of you guys that are getting, only an 8-game suspension out of a guy like Deshaun Watson for trading up with guys like, I've seen him get traded for like 23 seconds and like Devontae Smith, who I like, but like, come on. Superflex league, a stud young quarterback is way too cheap on the market right now.
Or I've seen people be like, I don't even want him on my team. I'm going to drop him. It's like, yeah, no.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like moral high ground leagues taking a big hit here.
PPM, points per morality.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Logan, you're pretty well set up. I said at the beginning, for a 1-year productive struggle. You build out your team using the 2 1s that you have in the 2023. If you have any guys like mid-season, like Rashad Penny, Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joe Mixon, like we said, that you can sell off. You also have Dameon Pierce here too. Maybe you're able to net some more draft capital in 2023, 2024. To be able to build this thing out long-term, because I think most of your pieces are well set up in the future to be better than there are currently. Guys like DJ Moore, guys like Kyle Pitts, Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, to name a few. So let's move on to the next team here from Jay Brown. 1 quarterback league PPR. He has, I wish this was a super flex, Trey Lance, Deshaun Watson, J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, A.J. Dillon, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Rashad Bateman, Traylon Burks, Brandon Ayuk, Calvin Ridley, etc. there. Kyle Pitts is his main tight end. All of his picks in 2023. And doesn't look like he has his 2024 second, but all of his other picks and then a couple fourths there in 2024 as well. So he just finished the startup for this league. Just wanted to know what the next steps should be. Is he competing? Is he rebuilding? He feels like he drafted more of the productive struggle route, went really young with most of his pieces here. Kyle Pitts fell to 207 somehow here, and then Calvin Ridley and Deshaun Watson just kept falling, so he made the jump for them in the 16th round and the 13th round, respectively. Now, it's a 1-quarterback league, but still, Deshaun Watson should not be on the board that late in the draft. He said he loves his draft, doesn't think he's necessarily a competitor, but if the chips fell right, then he thinks he can compete. So what is your assessment of his team?
Yeah, you could potentially compete year 1. I'll definitely say you should be in a much better position year 2, especially when, a guy like Aaron Jones is off the Packers and A.J. Dillon's filling into an extra spot, or potentially, Fournette, a year older, maybe show some leakage issues in terms of potential stability. And obviously with Rashad White and his receiving profile could step into a new role. So ultimately, again, you could compete this year because it's just a very strong team that you built out a startup. But I'll definitely say, especially when you add a 2023 rookie to this team, that 2023, your team is going to be one of the better teams in your league. And at that point, too, like you have phenomenal depth. You kind of mentioned here that you could potentially move Waddle plus maybe a small piece. It depends on the size of that piece, but plus maybe a small piece into CeeDee Lamb. I don't mind making that type of move, depending on
Yeah.
what the piece is.
Oh, absolutely. Because CeeDee Lamb's, dynasty value, he can't go up further than where he is because he's like the dynasty wide receiver 3 right now. But in terms of the amount that you'd have to give up to get CeeDee Lamb and the amount that you could trade him away if he's on your team, his value could go quite up a bit this year, right? Because if he has a 1,500-yard, 10 touchdown season this year, he could be alongside Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson for 2 to 3 first round picks to even get in the conversation of getting CeeDee Lamb on your team. So I'm cool making that move as long as it's like, would you give up Jalen Waddle in a 2 for CeeDee Lamb?
A heartbeat.
Yeah, like if that's the piece that you're talking about to get CeeDee Lamb on your team, I'm cool with that. But if it costs you, Jalen Waddle in a 1 or Jalen Waddle and Rashad
Exactly.
Bateman or something like that, I'm probably not going to be willing to give up something to that magnitude. But at the running back position, while you're not like the strongest, you have some guys that are definitely going to be able to contribute for this team and
Yep.
guys that probably accumulate value long term too with AJ Dillon, maybe Kareem Hunt, if they get like traded or the starters ahead of them are gone with Aaron Jones being a free agent after this year. So I think you're in a great spot. Like you said, I totally agree with your assessment. You could compete this year with this team, but more likely you're just going to be a young team going into your powerhouse years 2023, 2024, and 2025. So I don't really think we need to spend much more time on this team. I think you're well set up, got a good head on your shoulders. Let's move on to Nathan Moore's team. 12 team Superflex PPR league. Mahomes, Carr, Malik Willis, etc. at quarterback there. CMC and Barkley as his top 2 running backs with Montgomery, Sanders, Rashad White. Terry McLaurin, Juju, Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas, Garrett Wilson there at wide receiver. And then Darren Waller as his main tight end. Also has an early projected 2023 first, so I'm assuming it's not his. And then all of his other picks except for his 2023 third. So he has a couple trades listed here. We can rip through these real quick. I think we both agree it's a pretty strong team.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara for the 106, 109, 206, and the 406. So now I'm starting to understand where you got your good team from.
Yeah. So because I'm kind of confused here. So he got the right side in this. So you basically netted 2 firsts plus of equity for Alvin Kamara when he was dealing with, the legal issues, 26-year-old running back. Yeah, like please. Yes, please. And it looks like you got Garrett Wilson with one of those picks. Rashad White with probably one of those picks. And ultimately, I don't know what you did with the 109, but either
He
way, I
traded
mean,
it the next deal.
oh, you traded. Okay. So then you took the 109 that you got from selling Kamara and you packaged it with T. Higgins and netted CMC in an early first round pick in 2023. That's phenomenal. Like, again, you want to make the argument, CMC running back, you'd prefer Higgins straight up in Dynasty. Sure. Even if you want to argue that for ease sake. But then you compare the 109 to a 2023 early projected first. Like, the comparable to that would probably be in a mid 2023 second, an early 2023 second, even if you're very optimistic at the 109 this year. So you got an early 2023 first to move from T. Higgins to Christian McCaffrey,
which is probably a neutral move, overall value. And I would say, considering your team is this strong as it is, I would probably prefer Christian McCaffrey
in a
because you have
heartbeat.
a contending window type of team. So he says competitive team, but I'm lacking a high-end wide receiver to feel really good about my chances. Honestly, you have 2 high-end running backs. You have a high-end quarterback, another guy that I think is going to be good this year, high-end tight end. I'm okay going into the season trying to compete with this team, knowing that, I don't have, one of those superstar wide receivers, but you have Terry McLaurin, you have Allen Robinson, you have Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas, if he's on the field, could be your high-end wide receiver from a redraft perspective. And you have Juju and Mooney for some depth as well.
There's another easy move and an easy transition that I'm looking at right now.
David
You have
Montgomery.
you have your double hero RB, and you guys will have seen a video yesterday talking about hero and double hero RB that we talked about in redraft. But David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, there are 2 guys right now that are propped up on projected volume. If you can transition them into wide receiver talent, that's an easy move. And even if you have to package one of them to Juju and upgrade, what do you think Montgomery and Juju can realistically
I
get
think
you?
you get
Maybe
Deontay Johnson with that.
I was about to say maybe like a Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore type. And if you can make that type of move,
You could also go
absolutely.
after potentially a quarterback with one of those guys too, because behind Mahomes and Carr, you don't really have a third quarterback. So if you wanted to go from Montgomery and Juju and see if you could get Zach Wilson with that, or maybe you could get a different young quarterback like that, that would make a ton of sense to me as well. Maybe from Montgomery, you can get Mac Jones plus a wide receiver.
Yeah, or even if you have to do it straight up, yeah, I absolutely love that move. It's funny because I mean, you basically outlined it. I'm lacking a high end wide receiver. You have good numbers, but yeah, you have transitions you can make here to acquire another wide receiver on this team. So ultimately, here I think you're in a good spot. Planning to hold the 2023 first at all possible. Yeah, that
Yeah, there's no
2023
reason for you
first.
to make a trade for using that first at any point. Maybe if you absolutely need it midseason, but that pick is just going to accumulate so much value by the time you get to the actual rookie draft and in the combine phase. Because if that pick, it says early, if it ends up being Bijan Robinson, man, like that pick is going to be worth so much. And at that point in time, you can either choose to just add Bijan to an already competitive team, or you can sell him for a king's ransom, get yourself a stud wide receiver and maybe a 2024 first or something like that.
No, exactly. Another one he says here is, are there any preseason moves you would make or suggest I just go into the season? Yeah, there are no preseason moves I'm trying to make. I'm not going to buy some production right now. I'm not going to realistically do much here. The only, consideration here is if there's a report right now, Miles Sanders looking like he's going to be the lead back, whatever, and, there's coach speak or whatever the fuck fugazi that people want to believe in, and you want to sell that for equity, that's a good transition. And other than that, like, just hold pat and try to compete and see where you're at and, make the transitions as needed when the season starts.
Yeah, I would say any kind of 2-for-1s that you can make would also be something I would explore. Like if somebody's like really like shallow at wide receiver and they're willing to sell, Deontay Johnson and maybe even like a pick on top of it for Juju and Mooney, then you can make a move like that. And get a little bit more scarce at wide receiver for your team, but a little bit more high end talent would make a ton of sense to me. But that's, pretty much the only moves that stick out. I think you're pretty well set up to compete this year, and some pieces that you can move and maneuver throughout the season to increase your winning window as well. So we can move on to the final team, which is from Brandon Hitchcock here. 12-team, 1-quarterback league, PPR, 1.25 tight end premium. Kyler Murray is his main quarterback there. Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, James Conner, Travis Etienne is his top 4 running backs. Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle, Robert Woods, mainly at wide receiver. Tight end, Noah Fant, Hunter Henry, mainly there. And then he has 2 1s in 2023, 1 second in 2023 as well. And then all of his picks in future drafts. Also has a bunch of trades listed for us here. Basically, just general direction is what he's looking for. And then obviously talk about these trades. So the first thing that immediately sticks out to me is that this is a robust RB team, right? Like that's what he's built out here. James Conner is the easy guy that I'm trying to sell. But the problem about James Conner in Dynasty versus Redraft is that he has a ton of value in Redraft, but not as much in Dynasty. I would probably look to shop him towards more of a competitive team or package him with a guy like Amari Cooper potentially and try and get an upgrade at wide receiver. But like I said, the problem with Conner in Dynasty is that he doesn't have as much value as he does in Redraft.
Eckler's the one I'm looking at as well because, quite frankly, you can suffice with the running back core of Taylor, Etienne, Edmonds, and Michelle, in my opinion. So you mentioned Connor. Eckler would be the one that I'd also look to potentially.
You could always just keep
depart
Connor
from.
too, knowing that his value is lower in Dynasty. Just keep Connor on your team, sell Eckler instead. And
Yeah.
if you can transition Austin Eckler straight up, who goes around Austin Eckler in a startup?
Wide
Like,
receivers.
yeah, like at wide receiver, like T. Higgins. They go like kind of similar, I guess, maybe a little bit higher.
I
You might
would
you might
say,
be able to just transition Eckler straight up into like DK Metcalf plus.
yeah, I'd take that straight up too. Like if you can do that,
Yeah,
DK
exactly. Yeah.
Metcalf, or like maybe if you want to still get a veteran wide receiver and try to compete, maybe you can go for like Mike Evans in the 2023 too. Like, do you think
Yeah,
that's more
something like
comparable?
that. I think that would make a ton of sense because
Yeah,
your build is a little, sketchy just because you have
yeah,
so much invested in the running back position. You got to rely on, Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle, who I like, and Amari Cooper, who's fine, I guess. But you probably would need one more great wide receiver there, and you could stand to lose a running back in your running back core. So
definitely.
again, it'd be fine if you just went into the season with this team from like a redraft perspective, but I probably want to get a little bit less fragile at running back.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is, especially as a competitor, your wide receiver and tight end is leaving me a little bit to desire. 1.25 tight end premium. I like Noah Fant long term, but realistically, like if you're trying to compete, like even if you had like a Zach Ertz backing him up, or even if you had somebody in that type of realm, I would feel more comfortable. It's just I don't really think you have that, elite point potential year one if you're going to try to compete. Not to mention, especially a wide receiver in a full PPR, realistically, you don't really have that superstar caliber player and you don't really have much depth. So
If you
I
could
am worried about
transition
the wide
James
receiver.
Conner and Amari Cooper into a better win now wide receiver, like maybe that gets you to Mike Evans or Keenan Allen or Michael Thomas, or hell, maybe it even gets you to like a DJ Moore or Deontay Johnson if you have to throw in like a pick on top of it. Would you feel much better about this team's ability to compete if you
Yeah,
had your starting lineups, Kyler Murray, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler with Travis Etienne there? You have, let's
Marquise
say
Brown.
Marquise Brown, Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. And then you also have Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Waddle still on this team. And then you have, a mix of Noah Fant, Hunter Henry. I think I feel a lot better about this team's competitive ability, also knowing that I have two 2023 ones.
No, I would agree with that. But overall, you mentioned he does have some trades, so I'll let you start off with the trades here.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I absolutely can't stand this first trade. You sent away Elijah Moore in exchange for Amari Cooper, Jalen Guyton, and the 2022 411, which became Jeremy Ruckert. He said, I might have lost this trade in the long run. I would rather have Elijah Moore in redraft than Amari Cooper. So I think you lost this trade in the short and the long run.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this trade's very bad. Realistically, what do you like? Again, you're never gonna make this move, but if you're gonna move to from Elijah Moore to Amari Cooper, what would you need attached to Amari Cooper?
I need 2 twos probably.
I would too.
Yeah,
So.
I would say probably not quite a first, but I would need 2 twos.
Next deal, again, we don't have to laugh because I mean, you recognize right off the bat that you got fleeced on this deal, but yeah, you guys can see the deal on the screen. He gave up a 2023 third for Trey Cohen. Trey Cohen's obviously not currently in the NFL anymore, so yeah.
I mean, this is what we talk about as like doing the opposite, right? Like we want to just collect thirds because people don't value them rather than give them away for guys that like everybody has their my guys, right? So take advantage of people having their my guys and collect thirds rather than dole them out for guys that are very, very questionable like Tariq Cohen. So you also have another trade listed here on par. I think this is probably fair value. Kyle Pitts in exchange for Noah Fant 2-3 and 2-1, in 2023. It all depends where those ones ends up being. But even if you say that those are like early to mid ones, I would still probably almost rather have Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, it's I understand it. If you can pretty much guarantee that those are early to mid, like I don't mind it as much. It's just,
but I'm just going to assume for simplicity's sake that both of them are mid.
Yeah, probably a relatively fair offer. I mean, Noah Fant in a tight end premium is probably worth what, an early to mid 2.
Yeah.
So I mean, realistically, 2 1s and a 2 for Kyle Pitts. And personally, again, I would probably need 3 1s if I'm selling. But if you want to attack more depth and you believe in Noah Fant, I don't think it's the worst deal that I've seen for Kyle Pitts. If I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not like a severe tight end premium. It's 1.25 tight end.
Exactly.
Premium. It's not like it's like a 1.5 or a 2 tight end premium where Kyle Pitts would probably need at least 3 ones to be taken off my team. He trades away KJ Hamler in a 2023 first for Austin Eckler. You're competing. That makes sense. I think that's a fine deal. As long as that's your first, maybe in like a late first type of move. Like I said, I think it was a little bit overkill. I probably would have traded that first away like closer to the season for like a Keenan Allen or a Mike Evans to help build out your wide receiver core instead. But I don't think this is a bad move overall.
I agree. The value's there, but given your team context, given that you have so much invested in the running back position already, and given the fact that you made this move in the offseason as opposed to when the season started, and you're accepting a lot of risk that, hey, maybe, a 27, 28-year-old running back that Austin Eckler is, has some hammy issues flare up, has some training camp, shit that goes on. You never know, especially given the injury history that we've seen from Austin Eckler, that maybe something nags. So again, given your team structure and given, the time frame, I don't like it. But from a strict value standpoint, I think you made out relatively decently.
Yeah. So looking at your team overall, I think, again, you're well set up to compete, but I would try and get a little bit less fragile, see if you can transition a running back into a wide receiver. Yeah. But overall, you're pretty well set up. So before we get into the final 3 teams of the video, as always, got to pay some bills around here. Hear from our sponsors over at Manscaped. What's happening, y'all? Crotch discomfort hurting your game? Fear no more. The kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. They're sleek, they're soft, they're comfortable, and they're flexible. The brand new Boxers 2.0 from Manscaped take your balls to the royal ball throne. The global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, as you guys should know by now, have the legendary Lawnmower 4.0 for the trimming, so you can wear the Boxers 2.0 for the chillin'. They even trademarked the jewel pouch, which, I mean, you guys probably can imagine what goes in there, so you know it's serious. I think it's time that you invest in your family jewels, so let your bulge breathe and get 20% off plus free shipping by using the promo code BUSH at manscaped.com. Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped waistband on your underwear. It's almost a guarantee to raise some eyebrows and get them thinking. Act like a billboard on the highway to Pleasure Town. This is thanks to their Lawnmower 4.0, the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is also waterproof, so you can groom in the shower, and also has a 4000K LED spotlight if you need a more precise shave. Beyond ball cleaning, Manscaped is focused on ball comforting with the Boxers 2.0. Boost confidence everywhere you are, knowing that you're wearing the absolute best pack for your sack. These boxers are a game changer, and the features include the Jewel Pouch, a pouch designed to cradle your boys in their own special space, lined with perforated performance fabric to keep them well ventilated. The fabric is soft, the moisture-wicking boxers breathe without breaking a sweat, the tagless waistband hugs your body without digging in, and it lays flat against your skin to reduce chafing. The front fly opening gives easy access and makes bathroom breaks quick and efficient. Multiple ways for entry and passage for your package. You can even choose from an arrangement of designs and colors ranging from small to triple XL for all my guys out there. From El Jefe, Nighthawk, your boys will be in the right hands. Be sure to be proud of your underwear with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0. Use the promo code BUSH for 20% off plus free shipping. That is 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code BUSH. Thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. And now we're back. All right. Big shout out to Manscaped. Promo code BUSH, as always, for 20% off plus free shipping. Jared's team on the screen right now, Superflex League, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Jared Goff as main quarterbacks, Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt, Cordero Patterson as main running backs, Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, Jarvis Landry mainly at wide receiver, Dalton Schultz, Pat Freiermuth mainly at tight end, 2 1s in next year's draft class. Doesn't have his 3, but he has all of his picks in future years. He's mainly just looking for what moves should he make to compete next year. He kind of understands that he probably can't compete this year, but next year, do you think he can compete? And what moves would you make to kind of further that goal?
Yeah, so clearly here, your main, long-term pieces are going to be with those top 2 quarterbacks, specifically those top 2 running backs and those top 2 wide receivers. The main concern I have here, and I'm sure you're going to bring it up as well, is that your wide receiver depth is not great at all. And after those top 2 receivers, even though I love Devontae Smith and Elijah Moore, you don't have that, Jamar Chase, or you don't have that like number 1 long-term that you can expect to bring you top 6 overall production at the position. So if you're not going to have that, I would like a lot more numbers than you currently have. And I mean, realistically, can any of those guys after those 2 net you more than a late 2023 second? Do you think?
Yeah, probably not. So the one move that actually sticks out to me is, given your team construction and given the nature of this position in general, Dalton Schultz is probably somebody I would be looking to shop. You have Freiermuth as your long-term tight end, which is what you're probably concerned with at this point in your team's life cycle. So I would probably see if you can get, like, maybe you could buy low on like Chris Godwin, somebody that could appreciate in value this time next year. Maybe Calvin Ridley. Maybe you can take Dalton Schultz in a pick and go after DK Metcalf or something like that for a competitive team that wants like a better outlook for this year. I think that would make some sense for me, because that you're probably not competing this year. Dalton Schultz, I would expect to be at his highest value point right now, because he's playing for the Cowboys. He's looking like he's going to be the second target in that offense, especially once Gallup is back. I think Schultz, his value just gets lowered just inherently by Gallup being back on the field. So I think he's at his highest point right now, and given that you don't need him, he makes some sense to maybe go after a wide receiver with.
And the other question I potentially have here is that, do you think in season, especially when Deshaun Watson's suspension gets announced, and let's just say Michael Thomas is on the PUP list to start the year, could you go to a contender and say, hey, listen, I have Jacoby Brissett and I have Jarvis Landry. I want what's projected to be your late 2023 second. Do you think so? You think a contender would be willing to do that?
Yeah, maybe. You definitely have some flexibility with some of the like random pieces like Goff, like Brissett, like Hunt, like Patterson, like Darrell Williams, like Jarvis Landry, like Devontae Parker, like Christian Kirk, to be able to collect as many, second round picks and third round picks as you can, to be able to increase your longevity of this team. So I would say for the most part, I mean, those 2023 picks, you're pretty set at quarterback. Maybe you want to draft another quarterback in next year's draft. You're probably going to get some great value at wide receiver. So that gives me a little bit more hope in the long term that your wide receiver core will work out, is that if you add Boutte and, Addison to this receiver core, then it looks a lot better than it currently looks.
Yeah, no, agreed. But overall, again, sell Dalton Schultz because you have Pat Freiermuth behind. You don't necessarily need the tight end production, if you will, that a contender would want from Dalton Schultz. So you can make that type of transition. Another move I could potentially make is that if Kareem Hunt tomorrow got traded to a team that he could be a Belko on, that'd be a type of move I'd make. Even, if somebody's willing to overpay you for J.K. Dobbins and they want that potential right now, say he's on track to be ready for week 1 and you want to sell that, you have a lot of flexibility to keep accumulating liquidity, because ultimately here, as we kind of said, this is a 1 year, maybe 1.5 year type of punt type of situation.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we can transition to the next team, which is from German Seahawk here, 12-team half PPR league. It is a 1 quarterback format. So he has Trey Lance and Derek Carr as his main guys there. Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Melvin Gordon, et cetera, at running back. Very deep wide receiver core here, though. CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, and then Drake London, Jahan Dotson, John Mechie, some other guys there, and Calvin Ridley intermixed. Then we have Mark Andrews as main tight end, also has some IDP players listed, but we're not going to cover those. 2023 first, third, and fourth, and then all of his picks in the next 2 draft classes, 2024 and 2025. Also has some trades listed here. So the first area that he kind of wants to know is where can he improve? What part of his team would you kind of make some moves, and who should he sell?
So yeah, looking at this team, it's clearly showing to me that you have the pieces for the most part that look to build, 2023, 2024. You have a lot of young appreciating assets. The one player, in my opinion, that really stands out as like not fitting the mold of this team is going to be Derrick Henry. Again, it fully depends on the relative value in your league, but ultimately here, if somebody's willing to give you, a first type of value for Henry at this point, I would definitely look to make that transition, considering the fact that you have ETN Walker as your main building blocks long-term at running back. And obviously your wide receivers are all, 26 and younger for the most part.
Yeah, I actually didn't even see Walker when I was listing off the team, but yeah, he definitely fits the mold here. The one thing I will say about this team is that I think this is like a good balance of like you could compete with this team, but also like good in the long term, right? Because
Yep.
if you get to mid-season and Derrick Henry's tearing it up and you don't need him because the rest of your team stinks, then you could trade Derrick Henry at that point in time. But if you get to mid-season and CeeDee Lamb took the step and, ETN's looking like a top 10 running back, Marquise Brown and Bateman are doing the Lord's work, and maybe one of those wide receivers, Drake London's doing really well. You already have Mark Andrews as a staple at tight end. Maybe Trey Lance is, top 10 quarterback, having like Jalen Hurts type season from last year. You could compete with this team. You also have, some of your IDP players are really young building blocks too, with Derwin and Darius Leonard and guys like that.
Yeah, and so we'll look through some of the trades that he sent here as well. Obviously, again, we don't know too much about IDP, but you have some, young potential stud players there. You were able to send what looks like a late third startup and a 2023 second in exchange for Mark Andrews. So basically, you sent, DK Metcalf and a 2023 second for Mark Andrews. I'm assuming that would be about appropriate value.
Yeah, something like that. And I'm assuming you recognize Mark Andrews was sliding a little bit. You wanted to secure that elite tight end production. So it makes sense. Mark Andrews there. I think that's a fine trade up that you made.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I would personally rather, like the DK in the second side, but I think that's about comparable value. Next deal here, you basically sold Ayuk a fourth and a fifth for 2022 first and fifth. So let's just say the fifths cancel out. Basically, Ayuk and a fourth for a 2022 first. It doesn't say exactly where the 2022 first was listed, but if that was somehow, the Drake
I
London
mean,
pick.
worst case scenario, it was Dotson, right? It could have been London or Walker, but worst case scenario, it was Dotson. So I'm totally fine doing that move. I prefer Dotson straight up to Ayuk. It's really really close, but if he's the worst case scenario, because that could have been Walker too, or that could have been London. So I'm fine with the trade.
Yeah, again, if it was Dotson for Ayuk, I personally would still take Ayuk, but if you somehow got Walker or London out of that, then, yeah, absolutely. Final deal here, you traded away a 2022 late second and a fifth for a late first. I don't know why that person did that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
have
got
no idea why that person did that. That was probably Dotson.
yeah, that was
That
probably
was the
Dotson.
late first. That was probably Dotson. But
Yeah,
like either way, again, that's if that was Dotson, that means the other pick was Walker or London. So I'm definitely really cool with the moves that you made there. He also says who should get more value for 2023 on his roster is another question that he had. I would say pretty much your entire wide receiver core has a chance to go up in value big time.
yeah,
The
no,
only guys that like are win now pieces on your team are your tight end Mark Andrews and Derrick Henry. So the rest of your players on your roster have the chance to really, really accumulate value. ETN, Walker, Trey Lance, all those wide receivers.
his question was actually, should I get more value for 2023? And basically, the only move I kind of outlined before is Derrick Henry. If a contender is in season and Derrick Henry is a top 5 running back and Derrick Henry is getting 25 plus carries a game, and you can get a 2023 first for him, or maybe a 2024 1 and 2 for Derrick Henry. Make that move, because this team, if you get another pick added in exchange for that long-term value question mark that Derrick Henry has, you're going to be better suited long-term. Yep. So we'll move on to the next team, PP, aka Marco's team, and he basically just wanted us to give an opinion on his team. He says he had Cup and Debo on the trade block because he was afraid of losing value long term on either of them, given the injury concern for Debo and given the age concern for Cooper Cup. He basically wants to go out and get Gabe Davis. He believes in Gabe Davis. He thinks that Gabe Davis could potentially take a step up with Josh Allen this year. An offer that he has on the table here is Jameson Williams, which he would give up in exchange for Gabe Davis and a 2024 first round pick. He's not sure if he should make this move because, again, he really likes Jameson Williams as well. But what are your thoughts on this type of transition from Jameson Williams going to a guy like Gabe Davis?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not even like huge on or huge on Gabe Davis, but I probably would do this, to be honest.
Smash.
Because I think Gabe Davis's like dynasty value is like relatively like a late 1, early 2 type of area. And you're telling me I can get like a random first in exchange for, Gabe Davis and a 2024 first. Like, I think that's a pretty solid move. The only thing I will say is because he has listed here on his team, and we can kind of go through his team right now. 10-team super flex half PPR league. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson as his main quarterbacks. CMC, Barkley, ETN, Kenneth Walker as his main running backs. Then he also has Debo Samuel, Hollywood Brown, Jameson Williams, who he took at 103. So that might change something a little bit. You clearly really, really believe in Jameson Williams to be able to take him at 103. And then Christian Watson at 109 there. And then Mark Andrews as his main tight end. And he also looks like he has all of his picks going forward with an extra third. So knowing that that's like how your team is made up, you have like a competitive team. It makes some sense to me. I don't mind the trade at all.
I don't mind it at all either. You mentioned I am nervous because I want to compete this year. Jameson Williams is probably going to miss the first half of the season. At least he's going to miss the first 5-6 games of the season. Gabe Davis, again, we kind of talked about it. The market inefficiency between his dynasty price and where he's currently valued in redraft is pretty apparent because, again, we mentioned it on Underdog Fantasy, he's going like 4th, 5th round. On Dynasty, he's going like 9th, 10th round. So realistically, if you're trying to compete and you're getting Gabe Davis, you're expecting that he's going to have more redraft pertinent production value as opposed to long-term dynasty value, which is kind of weird to say given the fact that he's, a 23-year-old wide receiver attached to Josh Allen. But yeah, if you want to make this type of move, if you want to go for, Gabe Davis, get 2024 first pick equity, which again, as much as I love Jameson Williams, who's to say that player selected in 2024 isn't at least worth more than what Jameson Williams is currently valued in terms of the dynasty market. Yes, you love Jameson Williams, but from a pure process standpoint, give me the Gabe in the first side. And because realistically, I mean, Gabe Davis is, again, I mentioned a 9th, 10th round startup pick. Jameson Williams kind of goes in, the 5th, 6th area. Am I going to say right now, are you declining a 9th and a 2024 first for your 5th or 6th round startup? Nobody's declining that deal in their right mind.
Yeah, exactly. So, I hope you didn't take Jameson Williams over Drake London at 103. That would be a little bit unfortunate, but I think you probably make this move if I'm in your position. So let's go over some of the trades he made, and I think he's done a really good job here of a lot of these trades. He sent away Chris Godwin and a 2023 second in exchange for Hollywood Brown in the 105. That's absolutely absurd value. I would rather have either of those assets to Chris Godwin. Pretty much. I mean, Hollywood Brown and Godwin's like a pretty fair discussion. But the 105, I would rather have than Chris Godwin. Even though you took Kenneth Walker there, I would still rather have Kenneth Walker. So I think you did a great job in this first trade.
Yep. Next trade, you basically just traded away Ramondre Stevenson for 2023 second. I think that's about appropriate value. Don't mind that. Next deal, Cup for the 103 and the 2023 first. Going into it, if I were just see, 103 and I thought, maybe a London or Treylon Burks, I would like it even more. But even though I know it's Jameson Williams, who, again, I'm comparatively lower on to where you are, I still don't mind this move. I mean, Cooper Kupp is going to lose value after the season. You're getting younger. You're getting more equity long term. And those picks are going to keep accumulating value, especially, again, that 2023 first. As soon as, your league mates start realizing, like, holy shit, like this class is going to be phenomenal, you can sell them for maybe, if you want to get a veteran at that point, a Cooper Kupp level asset from a production standpoint.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So the last trade that he makes, he trades away his own first and a third, which in 2025, which doesn't really mean shit, for Mark Andrews. So knowing that you have a competitive team with CMC and Barkley and ETN and Lamar Jackson and these dudes, like Andrews makes a huge difference for your team. So I love that trade.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. His question basically is, what do I need? More depth at wide receiver? That is a perfect way to put it. Yes, you do need more depth at wide receiver, I would say, if you want to compete this year. I
Who would you use to get that depth? Is Pollard or Mayfield the guy that, like, Mayfield, if somebody's willing to give you something for Baker, knowing that he's probably going to start for Carolina, maybe you can get like a half decent wide receiver depth piece for Baker. But I think Tony Pollard could probably fetch you like a decent wide receiver if you wanted to shop him.
I was also thinking, again, I know you just selected Kenneth Walker, but I mean, if that person who got, let's just say it was Garrett Wilson or Traylon Burks at 106 after him, was like, damn it, you sniped me on Kenneth Walker. I really wanted Kenneth Walker. And then you could just go back now and say, hey, listen, if you want to give me a little 2023 third and I can get Garrett Wilson or Traylon Burks from you to move that one pick down, see if that's available, man. I don't know what your league market behaves like. Maybe they're very, very high on Kenneth Walker and you can make that type of move. I'd definitely be looking to do that.
Yeah, or maybe they can throw in like another wide receiver piece on top
That'd
of
be,
Garrett Wilson, like
yeah,
a win now type of guy, like Adam Thielen or something like that might be
yeah.
able to be gotten done there. So I think you're well set up. Again, you almost won the championship last year. I think you could definitely win the championship this year now that hopefully your running backs stay healthy because they were not last year. So I think you're in a good spot. Like I said, that is the end of the video. For those of you guys who made it to the end, again, comment down below Dynasty decisions. Definitely appreciate you guys, all the submissions that you've given us. We're starting to work our way through the queue. Got a couple more teams going through the month of July. Like I said, if you skipped ahead of this part, we are about at the end of June right now in the queue. So if you submitted your team at the beginning of July or whatever, we're getting to you very, very soon. We're going to be dropping another one of these tomorrow. So we'll get through more of those teams in that video. But with that being said, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace out.